James, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Maybe you can just start with a quick introduction and kind of why you decided to enlist in the Air Force, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so, my name's James Maurer. I'm a staff sergeant. I've been in for 12 years now. I come from an Air Force family, so born on Spokane Air Force Base out in Washington, or Fairchild Air Force Base out in Spokane, Washington. And then my dad PCS'd up to Anchorage, Alaska, where he was there for like 7-8 years, so made it all the way to like high school. Then he retired, moved to a really small town in northern New York called Malone, like 30 minutes away from the Canadian border. So, yeah, it was always in the back of my head that I was going to join, just because both parents were in. But it really sealed in the deal when I got to Malone and just saw like it was just a dead end town. I just needed to get out of there, just needed to get out and do something. So I enlisted in high school. I shipped out a month after I graduated, and that's why I joined. I always thought it was like a temporary thing at first, 4 to 6 years. I'll get my GI Bill regardless of how I feel about it. Then go to college, and then 12 years later, I'm still here. So,
yeah, what AFSCs were they in?
So both my parents were age, same as mine, 2A632.
Oh, get out of town, family of age.
And then my youngest sister, she joined the Air Force, and now she's also age, and my wife is age.
No way.
So, whole little age family.
That's funny. That's funny.
It was kind
is that all by design or just by chance?
I think a little bit of both. Because I went open mechanical because I was just trying to get out of my town. I remember I talked to the recruiter, and after I came back from MEPS, I was like, I asked him, I was like, hey, how fast can I leave? I graduate on this day. And he was like, well, how fast are you trying to leave? And I was like, I'll walk across the stage and get on the bus. Like
Oh, wow.
I need to leave. And he's like, well, the only one I have that's leaving the soonest is open mechanical, and I'll take it. Got to BMT, filled out my job list there, and I knew what age was. I kind of had an idea of what it was because that's what my parents were. So that was my number one. Got my number one. And then my youngest sister, she when she joined out of upstate New York, pretty much like they were looking for a different set of jobs. And she was like, hey, well, if an age job ever comes up, let me know. I'll take it. Doesn't matter when it's leaving. And I think a week later, the recruiter called her and I was like, hey, this DET member got hurt and this age job's open. You want it? She's like, yep. So yeah, a little bit of both, but I love age.
That's like super interesting. So there's no doubt that because your family was age, your parents were, and then you jumped into age, and then your sister is into age. So no doubt that you have a lot of good things to say about age, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That's awesome.
There's pros and cons to it, but like I said, like I love it. I love the career field. That's why I'm going back to it after I'm done with recruiting. But I love it. So
that's great. What bases have you been stationed at?
My first base was RAF Lakenheath, RAF Lakenheath over in England, and then I went to Osan, Korea, then to Spangdahlem, Germany for 3 years, and then I went to Kunsan, Korea, then Mildenhall, England, and then I got selected for recruiting duty, and then I've been out here in Florida since then. So
you trying to get back overseas again?
Yeah, definitely. If I can, but like I said, I only have, by the time I'm done recruiting, I only have 6 years left. So I'm pretty easy going wherever they send me. I would prefer to go overseas, but if not, it is what it is. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Korea's always there, so I'll just put in for Korea again if I really want to. So you're in Korea.
It sounds like you might have a strategy there going back over to Korea. I assume do you get base of preference coming back? Or a short tour preference?
Yeah. So when you go to Korea, before you even go, you fill like a base preference sheet, and you get moved up to the top of the list for a priority because you're going to a short tour, especially if you're volunteering for it. So pretty much you can put down 10 bases, and you're like, hey, I want one of these 10 bases, and they'll get you one of them. So that's how I stayed overseas, was because I'd go to Korea, put down back to Europe, and then they would just send me back. So
good strategy, really good strategy. Plus, it's I think from my time overseas, going from Lake Neath over to Okinawa, everyone had told me that if you're overseas, it's easy to stay overseas because you have preference, right? It's getting overseas that can be a little bit more difficult.
Yep, yeah. Especially too with being overseas, you're a mandatory mover, so you know you're going to move every 2, 3, 4 years, depending on if you're married or not. So um, that kind of makes it a little bit easier. But I just remember I always told all my airmen like, "Hey, don't go to the states. Like, stay overseas." And they're like, "Oh, but I miss California or I miss Florida." They PCS back to the states, and all of a sudden they're like, "Yeah, I should have stayed overseas." And I was like, "I tried to
Yeah,
tell you, man. It's not the same. It's different." Not that
yeah,
it's bad. It's just different. You know, I mean, you've been overseas. You can kind of understand. Like, it's just a different. It's like a more family, a lot closer bonds are built just because we're the foreigners. So
yeah. On the last episode, we talked about that as well on the actually Lakenheath. But it's like you're in a foreign country, so you're an outsider already, which kind of forces that
yep,
bond just a little bit more. So a lot more barbecues and social events and
yeah,
camaraderie, and like your coworkers are your social circle in a sense when you're overseas, as opposed to when you're stateside, everyone wants to get off the installation and they have their own little
yep,
social networks that are outside of the military installation. Yeah. It's I love it.
yeah,
I love being overseas. I was a homebody from Oklahoma. I My dream sheet consisted of any base that was like within a 300 to 400 or 500 mile radius of the panhandle of Oklahoma. And then they sent me to
yeah,
Lake Neath. I didn't even, honestly, in the last episode, I mentioned that I didn't even know where the United Kingdom was. That's how naive I was about the world. And
yeah,
now, like being overseas, it was tough at first. It was a lot of homesickness and stuff. But as soon as I overcame that, got my friends made, going out and doing stuff and exploring. It was an addiction at that point. I love being overseas. Obviously, I'm bringing my family over now over here in the Marshall
yeah.
Islands. But can you tell us a little bit about your basic training experience? Like what words of advice would you give to someone who may be going into basic training? I know it's a very very small, short snippet of time, and it gets a lot of focus compared to the actual Air Force career,
Yeah.
but rightly so as well.
Uh, BMT. My best advice is, I mean, it's just a game. Just look at it as a game. I think the hardest part about BMT for me was just getting into that mindset of not giving up, because that's what they try to put into you is like don't give up, push through. Doesn't matter if you're tired, sick, whatever. So that's always my big thing. Is just basically just go in there just with the mentality already. I can do this. I can make it through. People do it every single day. People graduate every single week. Um, just because you'll surprise yourself. Like some of the things that I did in basic, like I remember we did the obstacle course, and I thought for sure I was gonna end up in the water or fail every obstacle, but I made it through every single one. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, but that's just
Nice.
my biggest thing is just go in there, play the game. It's be quiet, just do what they tell you. It's very simple. Follow the rules. Um, some people get scared. They're like, "Well, what if I get yelled at? Have your parents yelled at you? Yeah, you'll be fine. It's the same thing,
You'll be fine. Except it's a stranger,
Um,
an angry
oh yeah,
stranger.
basically, yeah. But that's all it is. It's just that's just kind of what I did. I just kind of broke it down to okay, well, just do what they tell you. Fold my clothes a certain way. If it's wrong, you're gonna throw it. All right, well, I'll try it again. It's just that's a lot of how it was for me. And then before I even knew it, I was graduating. So just already having the mindset I will succeed will help people out so much more because they're that's their big purpose. At least from what I took from it was just getting that into you.
Yeah.
Because I remember there's one kid that was with us in basic who just I don't super sheltered kid. Didn't have a lot of friends. I think he was homeschooled. So this was like his first real introduction to the world, and he was
Yeah.
freaking out in basic. Was like, "I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna go home." We're just like, "Dude, don't. You can do this. It's fine."
Let's focus.
And he made it. He graduated with us, but we had to help him out once or twice.
That's
So
awesome. That's what I love about the military as a whole. It's that camaraderie that develops. Like it's that team atmosphere. They definitely instill that in basic training as a foundation, right? All the way from the marching, but
oh
also
yeah,
to the inspections and everything else. Everyone's got a part in the overall success. Um, it's individualized, but it's also probably I would probably say even more of a team environment. So it's cool that you guys pulled them along. We had a few people like that as well. I'm not
mm,
so prideful to say that I might have been that person. that
Yeah,
people were
there's a
pulling
couple
along at
times they had
times.
to. Yeah. Well, because that was another thing that we did. My flight was pretty good about finding those people that were good at the certain details. So um, on Sundays, like we would find the two or three guys that could roll their shirts perfectly, and they would be rolling all the shirts, and then we'd know which
Yeah.
guys can roll the socks the right way. So after the first 2 weeks, when we kind of figured out, like, hey, we got to use each other. This guy can roll the shirts perfect. Like, give him the shirts. I can do this. I'll go do that. So, kind of like that team building. My MTI was very big about that. You either fail as one or you succeed as one. So, that's all it is. Just, hey, who can roll these socks? I got them.
Double down on
So,
your strengths.
oh yeah, yeah.
That's cool. What about tech school for the age career field? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so technical for the age career field, I went in without even knowing. I never changed a tire before, and they start you off with the very basics. They'll start you off with like the common forms we see, maybe some of the specialty tools. They'll tell you what a technical order is, which is basically like this little. It's a little laptop that has all of our information about all of our units. That tells you how to tear them apart, put them back together, ops check, everything's in that book. So they start you off very simple with that. And then I think it's around 4 or 5 months now is our tech school. It used to be 6, but they condensed it because a lot of it got moved to OJT, which or on the job training. So tech school now is a lot more streamlined, so they push them through a little bit faster. But it's pretty awesome. Like we touch a little bit of everything. They go over mechanical troubleshooting, electrical troubleshooting, like in general, instead of being very focused. And then you'll have your equipment focused testing towards the end, where they're actually like, okay, well, this is our heater, this is our air conditioner, this is our um, hydraulic test stand. So in the beginning, they're just kind of giving you all that general knowledge to kind of give you that well-rounded feel. And then towards the end, they really start hammering down onto the specific equipment types. And then we also got
So
certified
what
in
exactly?
HVAC.
So what exactly constitutes as age?
So aerospace ground equipment. We work on all the support equipment for the aircraft or for that the base can use. So anything from floodlights, which are basically little diesel engines that are big lamps that they use to light up runways, buildings, work areas. Heaters, air conditioners, diesel engines, turbine engines, generators. So even non-powered, like big stands, tripod jacks, just anything the aircraft needs to complete its maintenance, its operational checks. Pre-flights, we work on all that equipment. So that's one of the things that I really liked about Age was because we weren't, it kind of forced you to be well-rounded. You can't just focus heavy on being a SME or a subject matter expert. You had to learn your equipment. You had to know what was going on. So, and a lot of it too was like just you had the simple fundamentals that you can take and apply to every unit. Once you figure out how electricity can work, they all kind of blend together after a while. So, a little bit of a steep learning curve at first, just because of the like how diverse we are. But once you kind of
Yeah.
figure out the basics, you can. All right, you're going to work on a diesel engine today. I got it. I can fix it. So.
That's a lot of diversity in what it is that you guys have to know. So at tech school, I assume you just learned the fundamentals of what a wrench is, all the way to
Yep.
this is the type of equipment you will work on. Then I assume when you get to your first base in the OJT that the Air Force relies so heavily on is now let's get into the meat of how to actually fix this, because now you know how to read the TO.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, especially for us too. So they teach you the in tech school. They teach us the more common equipment that we're going to see. So
Okay.
the diesel generator, the turbine engine, the bomb lift, the heaters and air conditioners. So they kind of teach you the ones that, right, well, you're going to go to a base, you're going to see at least one of these. But then when you get to your first base, you can go to a base where, depending on the airframe that's there, or depending on the base's mission, you can see a completely different set of equipment that you didn't even see in tech school. So that's why like they just hit you heavy with the fundamentals. So when you get to your first base, they're like, all right, well, you learned all that, but this is the equipment you have to learn now. So we've really streamlined, at least in our career field, the OJT process, because we want them to get there and be like, okay, well, you got to work on these things. This is different. So
Is there some technical differences? Like you have one piece of equipment at one installation, and then you have the same piece of equipment, same air quotes that's at another installation. Are there small technical differences between those, or like different versions or variances
there
on those?
can be. I know the big one is going to be the I guess where the real split really happens is between heavies or fighters. So if you go to a fighter base, you're going to see dash 60s, which are our turbine engines, and then you're also going to see like a smaller air conditioner called the C10. That's kind of like the meat and potatoes of the fighter world for their main support. But if you go to a heavies or the bomber world, it's going to be the dash 86 diesel generator, and then there's an air conditioner too, but that will change based on the airframe. So the only time they really start splitting is if you kind of get heavier in the heavy side. So if you're at a heavies base, but you're supporting like a C-130, it could be wired differently where it's put on different voltage. But if you're working for a B-2 bomber, then the voltage is going to be higher. So it'll change a little bit, but it's not going to be something that's so drastic to where you can't figure it out in a day or two worth of training. So
Got it. So
so
trust your experience, but rely on the TO for the details, right?
yeah, basically that's what I always did. Just the TO has everything. Um, So yeah, but like, if you learn the Dash 86, even if you have to upgrade to a different model because it's supporting a higher voltage, everything's the same except for one specific component or circuit because it's wired for higher voltage. So you just gotta, so whenever you do see those differences, they're very minor. So it's just basically learning the new circuit or learning the new component that's put in.
So whenever you get when you graduate tech school, I guess first on the tech school, is there a higher washout rate or anything like that? It seems like it's pretty technical. You have to know a lot of varying things on it.
For age, I would say the only two blocks that we ever see people wash out of are for the electrical fundamentals because it'll
Okay.
start with, this is how a battery works. This is how electricity flows from A to B. And then they'll throw in like transistors, resistors, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of had a little bit of experience with that from in high school. I was building circuit boards. So those blocks were super easy to me. I aced both of them. But that's the real hang up is just because you'll have the guys who would be really good with the electrical stuff that'll pick it up faster,
Yeah.
but they'll be slower on the mechanical end. So, or vice versa. But those
Got
are
it.
the
So
only
it'd
two
probably be
blocks.
good to learn a little bit about that stuff.
Yep. So yeah, so age forces you kind of like, hey, you have to learn both sides. You can't just focus on the electricity. You can't just focus on the mechanical aspect. So that's the only time we really see in tech school is people tend to get washed back is the electrical circuit just because it's a lot of information really quick. And they're just like, hey, you got to learn this circuit. You got to learn how these components talk to each other. You got to learn voltages. So like they'll give you like the equation problems where it's like, hey, this voltage is 12. The current is this. What's the resistance? So you have to like do all that kind of math. So those are the only two blocks that are really the hardest. But as far as like when I went through tech school and the people that I put in that go through tech school, not a very high washout rate because we try to keep our guys. We usually give them another. I know I failed a block or two when I was going through tech school, but they just had me retest 2 days later or a day later, and I passed it and they let me keep going. So it's not as intense with washing back, but it also depends on how you're doing as a student. It depends on if you're picking up the material. Your instructor too will have a say. So yeah, we tend to try to keep our guys from A to B. So
Gotcha. So whenever you get to your first base, you start your OJT, you start your upgrade training for your 5 level. Tell us a little bit about that
Yes, sir.
process.
So for age, a lot of it changed. We don't have CDCs anymore, so you don't get given like a bunch of big books that you have to study and take tests on. I know depending on the base you go to, how many people arrive. Some bases set up. I forget what the name of it is, but it's basically like age familiarization to where if you get to your first base and there's like 10 newbies that come in, 10 new 3 levels, they'll put them on, they'll do like a 2-week course when they first get there where they get certified in all their 5-level tasks right off the bat. Like that's the whole purpose of those 2 weeks is to get them trained up on, hey, well, these are the things you got to learn how to do. We're going to learn it this week. I'm going to supervise you at the end of the week. And then if you pass everything, you'll get your 5 level. So that's what Age is kind of doing now. So we're focusing more on the OJT aspect just because you can see the differences from tech school. I knew a staff sergeant who never even touched a jammer, and he'd been in for like 12 years, and he showed up to like in Heath, and they're like, "Hey, here's a bomb lift." He was like, "I don't even know what this is." And they're like, "Well, you better figure it out, staff sergeant." Um, so now we're doing a lot better. Like whenever we have people that are coming from the different airframes, especially if they've been, because I remember like we also have age familiarization. Then there's another course that we'll do as well, where like it'll be like very unit specific. So it's like you'll go to like a classroom for like a week to learn a nitrogen cart, and they'll tell you the ins and outs, how it works, operates. We'll also break it too, to where we'll put in like simple troubleshooting problems to where like the common ones you're going to see. So we're very focused on the job training now because we want the airmen to actually be there. We want to show them, help them along. Just because giving them a book and having them test out of it and then throwing them to the wolves, they're sink or swim. We don't want to do that. We're trying to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page.
Yeah, yeah. So how long does it normally take to get your 5 level?
The average time is usually anywhere from about 6 months to a year. If you go to a
Okay.
base that has like that 2 week course, you're going to get it a lot faster than that. Because since we got rid of CDCs, I know pretty much once you get 5 level tasks done, you're basically a 5 level. You just might have to wait until you officially sign for like that 1 year upgrade training. So, but we want
So
them fully qualified well before that.
what are the
Sorry.
different tasks between let's say a 3, 5, 7 level? Like what would they be doing day to day?
Oh, so your 3 and 5 levels, the 3 levels, learning the job. They're normally going to be shadowing a 5 level, which is our senior airmen. Those are like our experts who know what they're doing. They can work by themselves. So the 3 levels usually going to shadow a senior airman, where they're going to do anything from inspecting the unit, repairing the unit, whether that be flatline support. So basically, it's a shadow. And the 5 levels, those are the guys that we rely on more to actually like get like the day to day things done,
Yeah.
making sure that inspections are done on time, making sure the maintenance gets completed. Then your 7 levels, those are our staffs and our techs. The staff sergeants focus on basically managing the floor. So your staff sergeant is going to be in charge of. So your tech sergeant is going to be in charge of the section. He's going to be in charge of production. So he's going to tell the staff sergeant what needs to get done. Hey, this week we have 10 inspections. We need to make sure you get them done. Then the staff sergeants will divvy it out to the airmen. And then the staff sergeants are usually your Red X qualified guys. So anytime a unit's hard broke, where it's a Red X condition, meaning can't be used, has to be repaired, they're the ones who's going to verify and sign it all off after the 5 level fixes it. So
So what with age do you guys actually use the equipment itself? Obviously not like the lift and everything, but is there like the lighting or the if um if an aircraft calls for an HVAC or something like that, yeah, are you guys just taking it out to the aircraft, or are you guys just mainly focused on fixing the equipment?
yeah, it'll depend on what section you get put in.
Okay.
So age, we have 4 sections. We have inspections, we have maintenance, we have spuds or dispatch, and then there's also our support section as well. So inspections, those are the guys that are inspecting the units. So all of our equipment's built on either a 6 month inspection, 1 year inspection, 2 year. So if it's a 1 year inspection, they got to check it over, pull off panels, make sure everything's good to go, checking wires, checking lubrication, all that kind of stuff. So inspections, inspects the equipment, make sure that everything's nice, fixing minor problems they might find. The maintenance guys, those are the ones in charge of basically fixing the equipment that breaks on the flight line. It could be anything from a simple issue to actually like a component breaking. And then our dispatch guys, that's our flight line support. So those are the guys that will take the equipment from the ready line or the shop to the aircraft that calls for it, and then they'll drop it off, and then they'll pick it up when the crew's done with it. And then our support section guys, they're the ones in charge of all of our programs. Hazardous waste, PMEL, technical orders, all that kind of stuff. So we kind of do a little bit of everything, which is pretty
Yeah,
nice.
sounds like it. You guys are kind of
So
jacks of all trades.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we pride ourselves on is we're one of the last really well-rounded mechanics that the Air Force really uses, just
Yeah.
because we're kind of forced to do a little bit of everything. While some jobs get shredded out, well, with age we're not. It's hey, your age, your aerospace ground equipment. You can go from heavies to fighters to bombers, um, just as long as you just got to learn the job. I mean,
Yeah. Learn the
just listen to the
basics.
guys above you. Yeah, and that's one of the things that some of our guys have a hard time doing too. Is you'll have a staff sergeant that comes from a fighter world. It happened to me. I was at fighters my entire career. Then I get to Mildenhall, and now it's heavies. So completely new equipment. And I get there, and I'm getting trained by like a little senior airman A1C because I have no idea what I'm looking at as a staff sergeant. He's over here like, how do you not know this? And I was like, dude, I've been to fighters, so train me, please. Um, uh,
Now, is this
Teach me the
a is
way.
this a shift work type job, or is it pretty much just mission dependent? Depends on how much PM inspections you have to do, or how much of the equipment's broken, or
Yeah. We're shift work normally, so day swings and mids. So day shifts 7 to 3 usually, and then swings is 3 to 11. Then mids is from 11 to 7.
okay.
We do have a weekend duty crew sometimes, but that's mission dependent. So it kind of depends on what's going on as well. But the weekend duty guys are usually just kind of, if you're on weekend duty crew, you're kind of working day shift hours from Friday to Monday, and then you get the middle of the week off. But some shops have it, some shops don't. Sometimes it could be just standby to where if a plane breaks on the weekend and they need somebody out there, you'll go in. Some bases are a little bit busier. They'll actually have like, hey, we have a weekend duty crew. You're going to be on weekend duty this month. Um, so yeah, and then that's kind of how we operate. We're 24/7, so we're flight line, but also not flight line. We're kind of like a stepchild. So
So stepchild. So probably because you bring the equipment indoors.
yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, I can see how you'd be perceived as a stepchild. Everyone else is cold or hot,
Yeah.
and you guys get a nice
Yep.
air conditioned hangar.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some of the pros and cons of the career field in your opinion?
pros and cons. So I think one of the biggest pros is that we can go anywhere because we're not shredded out. So it doesn't matter what base I can go to, as long as age is there, I can go there. It doesn't matter what airframe, what the mission is. I also like the fact that we kind of also you learn everything. So you're not, you'll learn how electrical stuff works, how mechanical stuff works, TDYs and deployments as well. I think another good pro about our career field is because we're kind of like that stepchild of the flight line is we're not always tied to the tempo of the jets. So like if the fighter squadron goes on 12s because all their planes are broken, as long as our equipment's at 100% and we can man 24 hours, our flight chief would be like, hey guys, if anyone asks, we're on 12s. So that was always kind of nice because we still had our own we were still able to kind of have our own schedule just because it's based off our equipment, not so much how many aircraft are in the air. Because we're 24/7 shifts, so which was pretty nice. I think that's a really good pro. So I remember my crew chief
Yeah.
friends would be upset because they'd be on 12s, or having to come in on the weekend. They're like, "Hey, you going to be in Mauer?" I was like, no. I'm like, we're at 98%. We're good for the month. So, you know,
What about cons?
and then cons. Um,
Maybe there
I
isn't.
think the
Maybe
only
you're age sold with your parents and your sister, and
Yeah. I would say probably the only real con I could really see is kind of tied to the pro of going anywhere. It's the fact that you could be at a base for years learning one set of equipment because you're a fighters guy or a heavies guy, and then you get orders to a different unit with different aircraft, different equipment, and when you get there, they'll still train you, but you're already experienced, so they're going to expect you to pick it up faster. I
yeah,
remember when I got to Mildenhall as a staff sergeant, they're already treating me like a staff sergeant. I'm already getting troops, and then I was in the maintenance section, so they were giving me equipment that was broken or needed troubleshooting, and I was like, guys, I've never worked on this before, and they're like, well, senior airman so and so has. You have a TO, like figure it out, staff sergeant. And I was like, okay,
wow,
but I
figuring it
did.
out.
Yeah, but I also, it also kind of I had to kind of be humble in the fact that I didn't know what I was doing. So, getting
Yeah,
trained by an A1C was, a little weird, but the A1C knew what he was doing. He knew how the generator worked, what the common problems were. So I just kind of picked his brain. Then I think about it 6 months to a year later, like I had a good idea of what I was doing, and then I was
Yeah.
training all the airmen that were coming in. So I only see that as our biggest con. What other cons can we have? I think it's the biggest one that I see. I think that's the biggest one that
Yeah.
a lot of guys in the age career field really gripe about. The other usual
How big?
stuff, you know. Oh,
No,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to ask, how big is the career field in general? Because it sounds like if you have 10 new 3 levels coming in and you can do a class, it seems like the shop would be pretty big in itself, right?
Yeah, they are. There's a couple of shops out there that are maybe like 100 people. I would say your average A shop is anywhere from 50 to 90 people, somewhere in there.
Okay.
The only time you're going to run in a shop smaller than that is if you're going to, like, for example, we have a small detachment out in Chania, out on the island of Crete in Greece. I think that shop is maybe 12 people. There's another one too out in Rota, Spain, another really small shop, but they don't really do a lot out there. So there's like 10 people, and they're just kind of, they're chilling on the island in Greece. But
Oh
your
my
average shop's
gosh,
anywhere from
man.
50 to 90 people. That's normally where we sit at. So we're one of the bigger shops. We're one of the bigger bodies in a maintenance squadron. We're not as big as ammo or weapons, but there's a lot of people. So we'll get pulled sometimes for like, I know sometimes we'll have to help out corrosion. So if the corrosion's undermanned or metals tech is undermanned, sometimes we'll grab an age person or two just to help them with like the simple task or to learn the basics, which it was one of those things I thought was terrible, but then I'm also getting certified in another job. So I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
when I got farmed out to metals tech for about 3 months, and I learned how to do everything. I got signed off on everything except for welding. That was the only thing I couldn't do, but I could do everything else. So, which I thought was pretty cool by the end. But um, so yeah, so
So
there's a lot of us.
are there any certifications that you come out with?
The big one we get in tech school is we get certified in our refrigerant because we work on bigger air conditioners basically. So we got our so we get our certification for HVAC. So if I was to get out tomorrow, I can get an HVAC job without any questions on the outside. So I think it's a universal license if I remember right. It's been a little bit since I've been through tech school, but we get certified in
Yeah. Yeah.
HVAC. And through the career field, it really depends on you. Just because we are kind of well rounded, because we kind of touch a little bit of everything. Getting your AMP license is usually pretty easy. A lot of our guys get that if that's what they're going
And the
for
AMP
towards their power.
license, which one is that?
Oh,
See, I'm going to get you lying now.
I can't remember what it's called.
Is
I
that
don't want
like
to
a
mess with the
aircraft
acronym for it.
maintenance?
It can be, because I know AMP license. I want to actually make sure I say it right. Because I know it's a little bit more than just aircraft. AMP license. Yeah, it's an aircraft thing. But yeah, so some of our
ANP.
guys,
Yeah.
yeah, so some of our guys will get that. Um, but a lot of our guys usually tend to they'll use our degree to basically fast track for certain things. So working for John Deere, working for Lockheed Martin, working for some guys go to Raytheon. I knew one guy who went to Tesla, started building batteries.
Oh,
Just because we
nice.
kind of come from that pool of being well rounded, like whichever way
Yeah.
we kind of push, as long as we stay within that realm. There might be a few more steps to get a certain certification, or maybe we have to get a certain degree, but it's really not too hard. It just depends on what that person's looking for, what they're trying to do. That's why I'm looking at Lockheed Martin, just because there's age positions in Lockheed Martin, and
Yeah.
they even told me that, hey, well, we'll hire you. Just make sure you get this specific education requirement, and that's what we need. So, um, which was pretty nice. Um,
So that's awesome, man. So you are actually so you're extremely marketable on the outside, especially within any sort of maintenance community, just because of
yes, sir.
your broadness in what it is that you guys are taught. So There's
Yep.
actually a lot
Because
in the contracting world. So it seems like anytime that there's, excuse me, aircraft, commercial or private or military, whatever, you're going to have age equipment of some sort, right? So whether
yes,
or
sir.
not those are
Yep.
maintained directly at whatever location, or if it's contracted out, or whatever the case may be. So job prospects are high for you guys then.
Oh yeah. I know there's even some people that'll go they'll do age civilian side, whether that be a GS position or they'll go working at airports, just doing age still, just because they know it and they like it. And like I
Yeah.
said, some people they'll figure out those little things they need to do, then they'll go work for John Deere, Tesla, stuff like that. So it's just as long as you get your education squared away, that you research what you want to do. Just because we do touch everything, and I know there's a couple of guys that have gotten out to where they'll try to go to like electrician school or lineman school to kind of like finish out that degree to get their little
Yeah.
dream job on the outside, but they already have all that experience, so they kind of fast track them to where they're like, hey, well, we'll send you to this 2 week class, you'll learn what you need to do, and then you can start working. Um, so as long as you set yourself up in the right position, you could be extremely marketable just because of everything we touch, everything we do. We even work with air compressors as well, so
Wow.
kind of anything maintenance related on the outside, we can do.
What about
I mean,
special
because
duty
one of the
assignments?
examples
Are
I
there
told,
any? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
oh no, you're good. I forgot. I was gonna go into a story, but I mean, I replaced my own pool pump by myself, and so
It's a
just the fact
superpower.
that we kind of it was so, yeah. Well, like I said, I never really thought about it, but down here in Florida, we have a pool and a pool pump fried. And I remember my wife was like, "Well, we'll just get someone to come out and fix it." And I was looking around, looking at all the price quotings, and I was just like, "I don't like these prices. Like, I can fix this myself." So went out and did it, but all of that I learned, it's all age. So like a lot of the things that I tended to not think about, I use every single day. So I drive vehicle mechanics nuts because the only time I take my vehicle in to get fixed is if I don't want to do a job. Like if I know it's going to be messy or take some time, I'm just going to be like, nah, we can fix it. Oh, we can run all these diagnostics. No, I know what's wrong with it. It's this. Just fix this, please. Um, but yeah, but special duties. I don't think we have any direct special duties within like our career field itself. But we can apply for special duties. I know a lot of times being in maintenance, we can also do like positions in the squadron. That's where a lot of our guys tend to go. They can be anything from quality assurance inspectors to um, our our finance guys. So like there's a finance or not a finance guy, but like a card holder. There we go. You can be like a card
Okay.
holder for the squadron, where like now you're dealing with the big budget of the squadron, figuring out what to order, what to buy. Some of our guys will go up and work for like a commander secretary, commander staff, even up at group level too. They'll do that. So we can move up and down in our squadron with all the different little positions that they have. We just got to basically submit a package and go in for an interview. And if they like us, then okay, well we'll do QA now for 2 years, and then we'll come back. So that
What ab-
tends to be what a lot of our guys end up doing.
what about misconceptions? Do you know if there's any common misconceptions that new airmen may be coming into the career field with, or that other Air Force members kind of on the outside looking in at age?
Yeah, all we do is drive. Biggest misconception. Um, just because that's where most of the flatline sees us. Like they see us basically bring them equipment, drop it off, pick it up, and it goes away. So they think that people think that all we do in age is just drop equipment off and pick it up. No, because it's always kind of funny whenever we'd have crew chiefs, because we also have courses for the crew chiefs as well, where we'll teach them like, hey, this is how you actually operate this piece of equipment without breaking it. So we'll have them come in and they'll actually come into our shop and they'll see everything we're doing and they'll be like, you guys do all this? And we're like, who do you think fixed these things? Like, you know, um, like, there's a handful of bases out there where it might be a little different. Like, I do know that there's one base to where all the drivers and flatland support are civilians, or you'll go to a base to where their maintenance section might be civilian ran, but we do more than just drive, and that's one that always drives me nuts. Even all you do is drop equipment off. No, I don't. How dare you? um, yeah.
That's cool.
Well, I
Okay.
think some of it's jealousy too, because they'll see us in our bobtail, like, and it's raining or it's cold or it's hot, and we're in AC or heat, and we're not getting rained on, and they're just looking at us on the ready line, just like these age guys, man. So
A bunch of haters.
yeah, basically. So
All right. Is there anything that you think that I might be missing? No question that I might have missed, or something that you think would be useful information to someone who's coming into this career field?
for age, I think the biggest thing that I can offer somebody coming into age is just learn.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have mechanical experience, electrical experience. It's all going to be different. You're not going to pick it up overnight, because a lot of guys get defeated because they'll get stuck driving in the truck for a couple months or in inspections, and they want to go to maintenance or they want a TDY or deploy, but they're just not quite there yet, for them to kind of move up. So just learn, just it'll come to you. I think it took me almost 2-3 years before the switch finally clicked, and I could work on everything, fix everything. So it does take some time, but yeah, don't get defeated. Just learn, pick the brains of anyone you can. Doesn't matter what rank they are. Like I said, I got trained by an A1C on heavies equipment because I didn't know what I was doing. Um,
Yeah.
and that's it. Just soak it all in. Just process it. You'll get there. You'll become that mechanic that everyone wants to go to. Everyone wants to go TDY deploy. So yeah, that's my biggest piece
That's
of
cool.
advice is just learn. Just because you're not going to come in and start rolling everything out. You might have one guy that does that, but um, you know, even him too. Like he didn't start off there, so he'll
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah. Good advice, man. Really good advice. You could probably apply that to almost every single AFSC as well. Just be teachable. Be humble. Be
Exactly.
teachable.
Yeah, because there'd be times I'd be training an airman, and I'd be like, "Hey man, this is how this works." I know that. No, you don't. You've been here for
You
a week.
don't,
You
man.
don't know. Um, yeah.
What about so you as a recruiter over in Florida, there's no doubt you give a lot of advice. What words of advice would you give to someone who, like a son, daughter, cousin, nephew, um, uh, who came to you and said that they were thinking about enlisting in the Air Force? What advice would you give them for the process of coming in the Air Force, and then also what words of advice would you give them on, just generally speaking, how to be successful in the Air Force?
I think my biggest piece of advice for, like, if my son wanted to join, um, I would really foot stomp being open minded, just because he maybe he hasn't taken the ASFAB yet, maybe he hasn't gone to MEPS yet. You don't really know what you're 100% qualified for until you're done with MEPS. So I would just make sure to have that point, be like, hey, you're joining the Air Force, but you got to be open minded because you might want that air crew job, but if you fail depth perception, you're not going to get air crew. You can get it later, but not right now. So being open minded, just because at the end of the day you're joining the Air Force, you're not necessarily joining for a certain job.
Yeah.
So I would just make sure, because that's how my dad did it for me. My dad was always big with, you're joining the branch, son. You're joining the Air Force.
Mm,
He did have a say in what jobs I should and shouldn't do, but at the end of the day, that was my dad's point. You're going to join the Air Force. I would prefer you to be something that's a little bit more than just a desk jockey. He's like, but I want you to learn a skill. But he was always like that, open minded. So that would be my big piece of advice towards my son or friend. Just be open minded. Joining the Air Force, not basically going for a certain job. And then for anyone to be successful in the Air Force or in age, just stay committed. So if you come in and you're wanting to go to school, just make sure you actually go to school. Because that's
yeah.
another one of my biggest. I always got annoyed by the guys that were in that say I don't have time for school or they don't have time for volunteer, don't have time to work out. You do. You're just not making time
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
I've known plenty of people in age and maintenance and cops and all AFSCs that have gotten, bachelor degrees, master degrees, cross trained, gotten 100s on the PT test. But just set a goal and hit it. At least get some college done. But I think my biggest piece of advice for anybody joining the military is learn from your mistakes. Don't repeat them. Just
Yeah.
because they're going to
Yeah.
mess up. They're going to mess up in some way, whether that be work related, personal life. Just learn from your mistake. Don't repeat it. Because like I learned a lot of hard lessons in the Air Force, but that was one big thing that I kind of approached. I was like, okay, well, I won't do that again. So yeah, because it's a human thing. You're gonna make mistakes. I've never blown up a
Absolutely.
jet, thank God. But I have broken some. I have broken some age trying to fix it. But at the end of the day, it's just, well, okay. Well, now I know not to do that. So
Yeah.
just keep it going. Just don't get bogged down by that.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice, man. Really good advice. And it's applicable across life in general, right? Not just in the Air
Yeah.
Force. Is know what you want, right? And
Yep.
then make it a priority. Like it have just throw a little bit of intentionality in there, and
Oh
you'll make movement towards whatever it is that you want. Whether or
yeah.
not
Oh yeah.
that's in the Air Force, be Chief Master Sergeant,
Yeah.
or outside
OTS.
that you want to take the Air Force for all the education that you can and skills
Yep.
and apply that on the outside, right?
Oh yeah, because that was always one of the things I'd always, I would have buddies that would get out of the Air Force because, they might have a reason or two, or like, I'm going to go to college full time. I can't wait to get out. And then they get out and they didn't set themselves up right. They
Yeah,
realize
yeah,
that, oh, I forgot about rent. Oh, I forgot about this. Or like, all they really have is like the work experience. They didn't really do anything else, but, they didn't get some schooling done while they were in. So when they get out, they're starting at the bottom all over again.
yeah.
Because like even a thing like ALS, like Airman Leadership School, you make staff in 3 years, you go to ALS, that's supervision and management credits.
Yep,
Now you don't have to
absolutely.
start at the bottom. You can possibly get hired, a little bit higher up. Um, but yeah, but just set a goal and get to it. Especially if the Air Force is just a stepping stone. Like, don't slow down. Don't listen to the people that tell you you can't do it. You don't have time. You don't have time to do. Don't listen to them. There's probably a reason why
Yeah,
that guy's a 15, 16, 17-year staff or tech.
yeah.
Just don't listen to them. Just nope. I have a goal. Like I'm gonna hit
Yep.
it. You're not gonna stop me. You can help me or get out the way. That's pretty much how I always looked at it. Because they can be
That's the
successful.
truth. Totally the truth, man.
Yeah.
So I have a Marine Corps officer friend who's gotten out after a significant amount of time of service, and now he's a consultant. And
Oh,
he
okay.
was talking about the value of the training that we get in the military, right? And he was saying is like even the basic, like you're saying, ALS is your basic management and organizational
Yeah.
skills, right? The foundational, like he does consultants. He's a consultant across various businesses and stuff, and he's like they're making millions of dollars, but at their foundation, they don't even have basic NCO management and supervisory skills
Yep.
that he has to teach them at that foundation. So you learn a lot in the military,
Oh yeah.
and whether it
Yeah.
be specific to the career field or more general Air Force skills, management and supervisory skills and stuff.
Oh yeah. Because that's a lens that doesn't really change. Like I mean, I always I always called it airman vision. When you're a little airman, you only see kind of the day in front of you. I want to make it home on time. I want to go off base. I want to go to college. I want to go to the gym. I want to go back home and play Xbox. They kind of only see what's in front of them. But then as you
Yeah,
rank up and you got to get put in those positions where you kind of see a little bit more, now you kind of have that wider scope of, that was one of the things that was kind of funny because I remember like as an airman, I would always get mad about like last minute tasking coming down. Hey, you guys got to prep all this equipment. Why do we have to do that? This is dumb. Then I'm an NCO and here I am getting told why we have to prep all this equipment. Hey, there's no notice this jet broke. It's down in an island in the middle of somewhere. We can't have it stay there. We got to prep 12 pieces to go save it. You go tell
yep.
the airmen that and tell them they're going to home, go home late that day. They're like, well, why? Like,
Airman
guys, just
vision.
we got to get.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, but
yeah,
yeah, like I
absolutely.
said,
So
like
there's a huge difference between um, turning the wrench versus being a supervisor over airmen
yep.
versus being a manager over the shop, and then
Oh yeah,
manager over an entire organization. You get higher and higher and higher, and your problems become more and more broad,
oh yeah.
as opposed to like I can't get the wrench in the right spot. To I
This bullet won't leave
I
out.
have to manage morale of the entire unit so we don't tank ourselves.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because like I remember like my first production meeting. That was an eye opener. Because I was always like, well, why do we have to listen to the squadron? And then we get into the squadron, and then they're talking about sorties and flying hours, and the mission's coming up, and they're like, "Age, do we have enough equipment for all this?" And I'm like, "Oh, I got to process what just happened here. I just learned a lot."
Yeah.
So, um,
Wow. That's
so
cool.
yeah,
Yeah. The massive amount of skills you come out of the military is just, it's phenomenal. If that's anything, the piece of advice just off of our conversation for people who are coming in is don't get just narrowed down into your specific career field, but you come out of with a
oh
lot of
yeah,
skills in the Air Force in general.
yeah,
So
definitely.
so if you are just doing to do 4 or 6 years, right, you still get a lot more experience other than just your career field, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. It just because especially in age, like when I got put in support, I had to go to OSHA classes. I had to go learn
Mm,
how to manage hazardous waste. I had to learn all the different classifications and stuff, which can be used on the outside as well. Because we got certified and all that because it's a base managed program. So even like all that kind of stuff I had to learn and figure out. It's all stuff that helps me out to where now being an age, um, you know, having all that experience working every single section, getting all that kind of stuff. Like whenever I go to a new base and I realize there's something weird going on, I'm like, hey, like, why are you guys doing it this way? Oh well, Airman so and so runs this program. Where's he at? Let me see his book. And then I'll tell him where he needs to fix and all that kind of stuff. So
mm.
it was kind of one of those things I didn't realize how much I learned until I got back to the States and I started talking to the outside agencies like Lockheed Martin and stuff to where, I'm telling them my experience and age and they're just kind of like you've done all that? Yeah, dude, just get this and we'll take you. Whoa,
That's
okay,
great. That's a
so
confidence booster.
oh yeah, because like I said, I went in there and I was very like, dude, I really haven't done much. Like this is all the positions I've worked, this is all I've done, and they were just like blown away by it. And they're like, well, dude, just get your degree, and that's all we need. Oh, okay, you know.
Nice.
So
Thank
yeah,
you, Air
like,
Force.
oh yeah, yeah, because
That's cool,
I was a
James.
problem airman, so I had a rough time learning the job, but then when I finally did learn the job, everything that I went through to learn what I had to do, all the different positions I got put into work. Um, it made me stronger at the end of the day. So,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that I'm very, I have a lot to thank for age. That's another reason why I'm so proud of it. Is because it's done a lot for me. So,
Well, your age has a lot to thank your entire family for, since it's a legacy career field for you guys.
yeah, it's kind of funny because I ran into there's a master my flight chief in Korea, Master Sergeant Smizer. I remember like he came into
Shout
break room
out.
one day. Yeah, he came into the break room one day and he looked at my name tape and he's like, Maurer. He's like, I knew a Maurer back in my day. And I was like, oh, really? Like, what did he look like? And he's like, no, there's no way you can know him. There's no way. This is way before your time. And then I described him and he was like, how, what? And I was like, yeah, that's my dad. And he was just like, hmm. So, he kind of treated me a little differently after that. But, I remember a little bit later, on my going away, he was like, Maurer, he's like, you are a living representation of how old I am. He's like,
Oh gosh.
he's like, yeah, I wish you just never would have told me that that's your dad because
Yeah. Planted that
Sergeant
seed.
Smizer worked under my dad when Sergeant Smizer was a little A1C. My dad was like a tech sergeant, so I think he just kind of had some flashbacks where he was like, oh, like Sergeant Maurer, I remember him, but yeah, so it
That's
was pretty
awesome.
cool. People that knew my family and people that knew my dad, they're just kind of like, they're like, oh, look, a Maurer. So, like, oh, me.
That's funny. Awesome. James, I really appreciate your time, man, in talking about this career
Oh,
field. And even more,
well,
I
thank you
thank
for
you
having
for
me.
your time as being a recruiter out there and bringing young people into the Air Force. And and I don't think they've fully. A lot of them may do. They might have the perspective of exactly what it is that the Air Force is about to give them.
Yep.
And if you just, like we talked about, just throw a little bit of intentionality and what it is that you want and your priorities and your goals, whether it be for 4 years, 6 years, or 30 years, um,
Hmm.
that you just pursue that. And the Air Force is going to equip you in a lot of ways. That's for sure. So thank
No,
you
definitely.
for your dedicated service as a recruiter. I know a lot of time it can be a little bit thankless, some long hours at times, and
Thank you.
and yeah. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No, and like I said, thank you for having me. Like I said, your website's awesome. it's one of my it's my job counseling tool for recruiting. It's even if I have a guy in front of me that's asking questions about certain jobs, I pull up that site and I'll read it verbatim. Like, hey, well, I'm not an
Wow.
expert in this job, so let's look it up together. Let's read it. So, because at that point I might have to do some translating, because some words might be a little bit bigger for them to understand, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, but it's not too bad.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Awesome website. And like I said,
All
thanks
right.
for having me. So,
Yeah, without a doubt, man. Absolutely. You take it easy, brother.
you too, sir.